Hello everyone, my name is B.O.B. and welcome to another Minecraft tutorial. And today's project, as promised from last week, is a fully automatic wheat farm. And when I say fully automatic, I mean fully automatic. You set it up, you walk away, and all you gotta do from that point on is come back and pick up your wheat eventually. Um, if I'm honest, it's a little bit of a complicated build, as you can see. It's not too bad. But and compared to other villager-related farms, yeah, it's a bit intricate, a bit expensive. But as far as I know, it's really the only way to, well, auto farm wheat efficiently. So essentially, how this system works is we're using villagers to plant the wheat for us, then harvesting the wheat using water streams, separating the seeds, and then sending them back to the villagers. It's gets a little bit tricky as far as timings, as you basically only want this to happen about once every 20 minutes. Of course, you want your crops to fully grow before you harvest them. And, well, I mean, short of setting up an observer and a counter on each and every individual plant, you kind of got to time it a little bit loosely. So what I've done with my timing system here is basically set up a daylight sensor wired into a counter, which is going to cause it to harvest once every 2 days. It's only on the day of the harvest that the villagers themselves are going to be allowed onto the farmland. Otherwise, they're going to harvest the fully grown wheat, and we don't want them to do that. We want to keep that wheat for ourselves. As always, I have the materials required for this build laid out in this chest here. First, you're going to need at least one chest for collection. You could make this a double chest if you choose, but this farm's really only going to produce between 2 and 3 stacks an hour, so it's not going to fill up crazy fast or anything like that. I mean, if you need extra stock, go ahead and add it in, but it may not be necessary. Um, you will need 7 hoppers. You will need a daylight sensor, 7 redstone comparators, 6 redstone repeaters, 4 observers, 5 sticky pistons, 8 regular pistons, 6 redstone torches, about a half a stack of redstone dust. I think it's actually like 23 redstone, but I mean, bring a half stack, bring some extra. 1 block of soul sand. You will need a dropper, about 5 stands of your, or 5 signs, excuse me, of your choice. Full stack of dirt for farming on, about 11 panes of glass, but this could be replaced with fence posts, iron bars, basically whatever you have an abundance of in that aspect. It just has to be a smaller hitbox and a full block. You will need 2 composters and 2 beds, as we will be putting 2 villagers inside this farm. Uh, Depending on the size you choose to build this farm, you may want more. You may not even need 2 for this one, but this farm in particular is going to be an 8 by 8 square of farmland, and these 2 villagers seem to replant the crops sufficiently enough. Being that we're building a crop farm, we will need some lighting sources. I'm going to put 5 sea lanterns into this farm. You don't need sea lanterns. You could use whatever lighting block you want. You could even use standard torches if you prefer, but just make sure that the entire farm is well lit. You will need about 16 stair blocks, which we will be waterlogging, so bring 2 buckets of water to create an infinite source. Lastly, just general building materials. Probably I would bring about 3 stacks of solid blocks, 3 stacks of glass. You may not need that much of each, but it's just best to have some extra. Now the area for this build is 14 wide by 16 long. And we will be dropping some of this circuitry about 4 blocks below the farmland. So if you want your farmland to be at ground level, you're going to want to dig about 4 blocks down, at least for these circuits right here, this circuit right here in front. Well, there's a couple circuits there. And then there's another, well, just basically a redstone line in the back with a very long delay on it. But to get started on the build, I want to come to the right-hand side of our build area. I'm going to come about 5 blocks in. Let's go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then 1 block towards the center from there is where we're going to place our collection chest. Now I want to come around to the back of the collection chest and crouch place a hopper feeding into that. I want to jump up on top of this hopper so I can crouch place a block right on top of that chest and then have another hopper feeding into that block. And then we can actually break that block away from there. We don't need that. This is just going to help start off our item filter. This is how we're going to separate our seeds from our wheat. So we want to run an item filter out of this hopper here. That's gonna be where the actual filter itself is. So we need a block to place a comparator on. We're going to place it right on the back of this lower hopper and place our comparator onto that block. Then we also need a glass block right here, and we can switch back to our solid blocks for here, and then one right below this solid block here. Now let's just go ahead and run a redstone line from the comparator down to this solid block, and then on the opposing side of this solid block we got a torch, and that's going to be the makeup for our item filter for this farm. Since we're not tiling more together, we don't need to work with any repeaters or like pistons or obsidian down here. It's just one item filter. The line's not going to cross anywhere, so this should work just fine. Next we want a solid block right here next to that hopper that feeds into nowhere, and then that way we can place our dropper facing away from that hopper right here. Now with that dropper in place, we're actually going to put our soul sand right in front here, and that's going to be the beginnings of our bubble tube, which sends our seeds back to our villagers. But let's come back to that. We need to make sure that only seeds are going into this. So what we're going to do is filter out the wheat. We're going to place our filter in this upper hopper right here. Now we're going to set this up just like any standard item filter. We want 4 junk items to go on the 4 slots on the right. I'm going to use just cobblestone blocks here. You could really use any item you want. You just, oops, placed that in the wrong spot. You really just want to make sure it's not an item that's going to come through the farm already, but realistically the only things that should be coming through here are your seeds and your wheat. Now I'm going to just drop a whole stack of wheat in here. Really you only need about 42. So when I place this in here, it's going to automatically drop to 41 anyways. The 42nd one is going to get locked into this hopper below, and then any remaining should end up in this chest here. So yeah, there you go. It stopped at 41. There's 1 locked in the hopper below, 22 in this chest. Now any wheat that were to pass through here should get dropped down into the hopper. So we want 1 more hopper above that, feeding into the side of that dispenser. So that way all the seeds are automatically going into the dropper, and if any wheat enters this hopper, it'll get sucked down through the filter. Now the next step is to wire up an auto dropper circuit to this dropper, and to do that I'm going to place a piece of glass right here diagonally above the chest, and we want a comparator right on top of that piece of glass, pulling a signal from that dropper. Now we want that comparator to feed a signal directly into a solid block, and I'm just going to place a temporary block beneath that so I can get underneath this structure and have a sticky piston facing inwards here. Now let's get rid of that temporary block and go ahead and place some redstone dust on top of that. And then right on the face of that sticky piston, you want an observer with the redstone dot facing up. So you're going to want to get above it to place it, and you should be able to see that redstone dot through the glass block there, which is actually why that needs to be a glass block. Otherwise this observer will power that block, which would power that redstone dust, which is basically going to create a clock, and that's not what we want in that situation. What we do need though is another observer facing the other direction in this block, but 1 block below. So I'm gonna actually dig down 2 blocks from here, so I'm gonna place 1 right there, and then 1 on the bottom of that. I'm gonna break away the top one, and then that clock is all set up. So whenever items are in this dropper, this comparator will send power to this dash of redstone dust, which will extend the piston, triggering this observer clock, which feeds us signal right back into that dropper. Auto dropper circuit all complete. Let's move on. So that's basically the first little bit of redstone. Our item filter and our return system, that's all set up. The redstone, which actually flushes out the system, that's going to be an entirely different set of circuits. But we're going to start building our farm structure right off of this here. So what we want to do is off the side of this top hopper, we're now, of course, coming in towards the center of our build area. We're going to place 8 blocks right here. So go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And that's basically going to be the tray which feeds everything down into that hopper. We need to build a little lip up off of this to hold water in. So I'm going to just place a temporary block there. And I'm going to come around the edge of this and just bring this all the way to this side. And then another block right here on top of this hopper. So we got this little rim around the edge of this. Next, we're going to need to get our stair blocks. You know what we're going to do with these stair blocks is we're going to start right here, and we're going to place a line of 8 of them. You want to make sure they're facing upwards, so without blocks beneath them, it might be a little bit difficult to place. You may want to place blocks beneath them in case you have to break those stairs out of there. It's not going to erase the water source. It's all going to flood down underneath. But really only on this side would it affect any of the redstone. Everything over here should be fine. But yeah, you want 8 of these stairs in place. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. And we're going to do the same thing on the other side, but we actually want that to be right in line with this hopper here. So I'm going to place a solid block right there so I can place the first one. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, oops, not there, 6, 7, and 8. And then I want a line of block that goes from the end of this line of stairs all the way to the over to the other line of stairs. Now this square that's in between here, we want this all to be filled with dirt. Make sure you don't put it on top of these solid blocks, so you want it to be just where the stair blocks are. But yeah, this should be an 8x8 platform. Go ahead and fill this up. And once you've done that, your farm should look a little something like this right here. So what we're going to do now is go ahead and waterlog each and every one of these stair blocks. Easiest way to do it, probably build an infinite water source up here on the surface and just keep running back and forth to that infinite source. Saves you time from having to leave the farm to get more or trying to fill up 16 buckets of water and hogging up your inventory. I'm in creative, so I can just keep using this same bucket of water. But yeah, you want to waterlog each and every one of these. Oops. And, well, right here is where we're going to need one of our signs. And you're going to want to place that sign right there above the hopper. It doesn't have to say anything. We're just holding back the water, as you can see here. And we want one more water stream actually on this end, so it flushes everything down into that hopper. You have this weird little visual glitch where the water streams sort of connect there, but that's not going to affect anything, so I wouldn't worry about that. What we want to do now is, pillar up off the corners. I'm going to use this corner this as one of the corners right here. So let's go 1, 2, 3 blocks off that. 1, 2, 3 blocks off that corner. Another 3 over here. Another 3 over here. And I'm going to go ahead and take my glass blocks, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to fill in across the front here up as high as my pillars are. And then I'm going to do the same thing on the sides, but not the back just yet. We're going to do that a special way. But go ahead and bring all of your walls up. And on this side we can go right over top of our sign that's in place. But go ahead and bring all your walls up to the top of your pillars. Alright, so I've got the walls built up around 3 sides of my farm here. You can see those walls are 3 blocks tall. And like I said, we're going to do the back wall kind of special. And how we're going to do that is we're going to come right to the center blocks. There's 2 blocks here, and this is where 2 more sticky pistons are going to come into play. We're going to put them underneath these 2 blocks facing upwards. So I want to pillar 2 blocks down. if I can place blocks today, okay. But go ahead and place one sticky piston here. Oops, we want that to be facing up, and then another sticky piston right beside it. Oops. Well, here, I'll just place another one on the face of that. Now, you don't actually need two. You could just use one. I chose to do two, so that way you can kind of center it in the farm. Plus, you got two villagers, and this is basically going to be creating their walkway. So you want to make sure they have plenty of room that they can both get through there, and they're not getting in each other's way. Um, but now that we got those in place, we're going to build up part of the wall. So you want to go 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. We're only going to make those two high here, but do the same thing on the other side of the pistons. Just 3 wide, two tall, not on the dirt. Oops. And then we want to get two more signs. We want to put one sign on this glass block right here, and then another one on this glass block here. And now that those are in place, we can go ahead and get our regular pistons. And what we're going to do with those regular pistons is we're just going to basically build the top part of this wall, the top layer, go all the way across, right over top the signs, all these pistons facing in towards your farm. And basically what we're doing is we're waterlogging these pistons, and we're going to use them to flush out the farm rather than the dispenser bucket method, because, well, this is actually a lot... Oops. This is actually a lot cheaper. When you think about it, you don't need buckets of water. You don't need 8 buckets of water and 8 dispensers. Dispensers are a pain to craft because you got to craft bows before you do it. Yeah. This is a much cheaper method. But now that those pistons are in place, what we're going to do is we're going to build the room that the villagers are going to live in, their apartment, so to speak. I've been building this 4 wide by 3 long, so go right here, 1, 2, 3, 4. Oops. Yeah, you want it to be. Oh yeah, I guess I did want that block there. So yeah, 4 wide, and then it comes 3 blocks off the back, and then you're gonna want to wall this thing in. I usually just kind of wrap glass blocks around the outside like so. These only need to be 2 high. We're gonna put solid blocks on top and build some circuits up there. But I'm gonna go ahead and wrap glass around this little room. And then once that's done, you should have something like this here. So what we're going to do is start building sort of a roof over this. And we're going to start off by just putting a line of blocks across the back of these pistons. That line's going to need to be there, otherwise the water we waterlog those pistons with is going to flow out the back here. We don't want that. Next, let's just go ahead and build a rim around the top of our glass walls here. And eventually, we'll be filling all of this in. But it might be a good idea to leave some of it open until after you get your villagers in there. But the next thing we're going to need now is our daylight sensor. Right here on this corner here, on the back side of what would be the farm once that's all in place. And then right beside that daylight sensor facing the center of the farm, we want a sticky piston. And you should see, since it's daytime, that's going to extend right away. That's just fine. But then we want to come on this side and place an observer right on the face of that sticky piston right there. So it's facing towards the center of the farm. Then right on the back of that observer, provided this is extended when you put it in place, go ahead and place a solid block with a redstone torch on top of that. Now I want to go ahead and place a temporary block right here, and we need to build just a little 4 hopper ring. And so what I'm going to do is have 1 hopper feeding into this side of the block here, and then a hopper feeding into the side of that, which, oops, you got a crouch place to put it in here. Let me find a good place to stand to do it. Could probably do it here. But yeah, crouch place that, feeding into the side of that hopper. Another hopper feeding into the side of that one. Break away your temporary block, and then feed another hopper into the side of the last one you placed. Then go ahead and place 2 dashes of redstone dust across just those 2 hoppers, the ones right in front of you. And this is basically our counter. Eventually we'll put an item in this hopper ring, and then every 2 days it'll make a full cycle. But we're going to wait to put our single item inside the hopper. We don't want this thing going off while we're actually like setting up the farm, or there's still a lot to be done yet. So that's going to be one of the last things you'll do. But now we need to be able to take a signal out of this counter. So I'm going to come to this block right here. I'm going to pillar 2 blocks out, and then place a comparator right here. So it's pulling a signal from this hopper here on your corner, and then we want that comparator to feed directly into a solid block. So I'm going to place a temporary block right there, one on the top, and then another one on the bottom. We'll break away that temporary, and then we're going to put a dash of redstone dust right where that temporary block used to be. So now this hopper will feed a signal into that dash of redstone dust. Let's go ahead and place a redstone torch on the side of the block right here, and then it's going to be 2 blocks down. We can do this right off the bottom of the torch. Just place a block, another block, break away the top one. Let's go ahead and place a dash of redstone dust on top of that. You see that torch then powers that dust. So what we want to do is come to this side, place another torch, which will turn off automatically, and we're going to do the same thing here. Build right down off the bottom of the torch, go 1, 2, break away the top, put a dash of dust on top of that block there. Now facing the same direction on this lower block, we want yet another torch, and that one should be turned on as soon as you place it in there. And then we want that torch to feed into a couple of repeaters, but we need to build a platform for those repeaters. So let's build right off the face of the torch. So let's go 1 block out, place 1 block beneath that one, and we can break away this top block. And then add 2 more coming in the same direction here. So 1, 2. So that's now 3 blocks long. We want to step up 1 block from that. So we could just place a temporary and get rid of that afterwards. And then now we want to come and bring this line over to our piston. So let's go 1, 2, 3. And then let's add another block right here, so that way we can send a redstone line to both of those pistons. Next, we're going to need some repeaters, and we're going to place 5 of those repeaters in right here. They're all going to be set to 4 ticks, and we're going to start right here coming off of this redstone torch. So let's go ahead and place 1, click it down, click it 4 ticks, click it 3 times. Oops. And then on this block here, we just want a dash of redstone dust. 2 more repeaters set to 4 ticks. And then these last 2 blocks just have dust. And yes, your pistons will extend as soon as you put them in place, provided there's no item in this hopper right here. That's going to be determining what days the villagers can leave and what days they have to stay in their room. And yeah, the only reason for all the repeaters is it's kind of the same circuit that's going to initiate the flush system. So we want these blocks to be here when the flush system starts. That way most of the items will get pushed down to the other end of the farm. To be honest, you will get a few straggler items. It's minuscule though, minuscule. Let's go ahead and set that flush system up now, and we're going to kind of build this off the same circuit we've just created, or the same redstone line. I want to come off of this dash of redstone dust right here. I'm going to come to this side of the farm, and I want to place a sticky piston on this dust, right on the edge of this dust here. Just like that. And then I'm going to want an observer. We want this to be facing upwards, so let's get above the sticky piston and place it on the place that observer on the face of that sticky piston, so you see its face is on the bottom. Redstone dot facing off the top, and then we want that redstone dot to power a block. So I'm going to place in a temporary block right here, and then another one right next to it. We'll break away that temporary. So now whenever this piston extends, it's going to feed a signal to this block right here. So now we need to take a signal off of that block. We're going to do that with a repeater. So I'm going to step down to place a repeater on the top of that block. Oops. Right here. And then we want that repeater set to 4 ticks. And the only reason for the 4 tick delay here is because this is a monostable circuit we've created here. So it's going to feed a 1 tick pulse into that block, but we need a much longer than 1 tick pulse. So we're going to extend the circuit slightly here, or the pulse slightly here with just this repeater. Having it on a 4-tick delay, I think will create a 3-tick pulse if I'm not mistaken. But we need to extend it even further, so we're going to build a little platform for another pulse extender here. So let's go 2 blocks away from the repeater, and we're going to actually just kind of fill this in all the way back to our farm. So let's just go 2 wide with this the whole way back. And so now we got our platform in place. So what we're going to do is build the pulse extender. Let's bring 2 dashes of dust off the end of this repeater, and we want to switch to comparators, and we go 1, 2, turn around, 3, 4. And now let's go ahead and place a solid block on the right hand side, the part that's feeding the signal in. Let's go ahead and place a block there and a dash of redstone dust right beside that. Next, on the opposing side of this block we just put in place, we want a torch, and then we want a line of redstone dust coming from that torch all the way to the end of your piston line, just like so. And now that all of these pistons are powered, we can go ahead and waterlog each one. And as you can see, the water stays within the hitbox of the piston, but whenever those pistons lose power, as I can demonstrate right here real quick, I just get rid of that torch, it then lets the water flow across the farm. So that's how we're operating our flush system here. And now that that's set up, I believe we can move on to our seed return system, and then all we'll have to do is get our villagers in here and get some crops planted. We need to build a bubble tube off of our block of soul sand here, so I'm going to place a temporary block right on top of that soul sand and just place, oops, oh geez, I'm breaking it. Okay, just place blocks on all sides of that temporary block, and we can break that temporary out of there, and that's the beginnings of our bubble tube. I'm going to go ahead and build the rest of mine out of glass, but we want that to come up even with the top of your farm, so let's go ahead and pillar up off these blocks we just put in place. And once that's done, we need to get some more water sources. This part would probably be easiest done with ice, uh, or I mean, if anybody knows how to create a bubble tube, you got to make sure each one of these are water sources. So in this case, it's going to take, well, let's say 3 buckets of water, because we don't want one in the top block. Let's go ahead and drop. Oops, if I can get down this tube, there we go. Place one here, one here, one here. I guess it would be 4 buckets of water, one there. Leave this top one open. We want to put a sign in right there. So let's go ahead and place that sign in. That's just going to leave a little air pocket, so when the items shoot up the bubble tube, they're going to be shot into a separate water stream, which is then going to feed them back into the farm. So let's just go ahead and create a tube to make that happen, where I'm going to place 1 block here, 1 on each side, and then I want to bring this back to about the center of the farm. This part is kind of a matter of wherever you want it to be. I'm going to bring my corner to right there, so it kind of sort of lines up with the doors. And yeah, come 1 block away from that. You want to make sure there's blocks underneath here. And then we want to come back in towards the center of the farm. So I like to come to, well, as close to the middle as possible. It's an even number of blocks, so it's kind of hard to find the exact center. But I'll come to here, and then right on the very end is where I'm going to place one of my sea lanterns. And so, yeah, I'm going to place that right there, and that's actually going to be the last block on the bottom of my delivery system. Actually, that's a little bit close. So I'm going to bring that 1 block in. I'm going to put that right there. Like I said, this doesn't have to be exact. All we're doing is dropping seeds somewhere on this farmland. So that way when those villagers come out onto the farmland, they can pick up those seeds and start planting. You do want to make sure they can get under those blocks as well. Since I got my sea lanterns out, I'm going to go ahead and put these in 4 corners of the farm. We'll put it right there on the end of that piston, and then I'm going to come... We'll go 1 block away from here, so we'll put it there. Put 1 there, and 1 there. And that should provide sufficient lighting for the farm. Again, yeah, you don't really need sea lanterns. You could be using torches to do that, but just make sure all of the farmland is lit up. But now I'm going to go ahead and complete this tube. So I'm going to bring this line of glass blocks all the way in line with that sea lantern, and the same with this line of glass blocks. And then I want to get my glass panes out, and I'm just going to make a line of panes that go from this block to this block. So you should have this little shape right here, and that's just going to stop the water, and then the seeds are actually going to hit that pane and just drop straight down. That's what we want. So we need to get some water in here. Before we do that, the block right before the corner, right here, we want to place another sign right there. That's just going to hold back the water, so that way it's going to go, the items will go across this section and then catch another water stream here. So let's put this water stream in. You put that in, you should see it flow to the sign. Put one in this corner, you should see it flow to those glass panes. That's all set up. Now all we need to do here is cap this thing off. You don't really need one there, but you do want blocks or something above that so your seeds aren't bouncing out of your water streams, and I like to bring that all the way up to the end here. Now we need to get a line of glass panes or fence posts or even iron bars. We want to put them right across above this collection water stream, and this is that way your villagers aren't getting down in there and bouncing around, getting stuck, all that other nonsense, but your seeds will still easily flow down into that stream. Well, seeds and hay. And, well, I guess the last thing we need to do now is, well, we'll need to get our villagers in here and then get all this land tilled up at least so we can get farming. So there's a few precautions we're going to need to take. For one thing, if you have the other farms like these in the area where the feeder villagers don't have beds or workstations, you're going to want to give them beds and workstations. Otherwise, they're going to link to the new ones you're placing in. At least this applies for any villagers close by that do not have both beds and workstations. In the same aspect, you want to make sure there are no unoccupied beds or workstations in the area as well. Meaning if you got like a smithing table or something sitting around that a villager hasn't already linked to, you're going to want to pick that up before you bring them in. Otherwise, the villagers may link to the wrong workstations. Same thing with beds. Even if it's your bed, as far as villagers are concerned, you don't have a bed. So pick it up before you drop these villagers in. Safest way to do it would probably be drop them in through the roof, which is why I said you may want to leave this open to start out with, but you could bring them in through the farmland. However you want to bring them in here, you got to get them in here, but you'll want to do it one at a time, just to ensure they get linked up properly. So I'm going to start by placing in one composter in this corner. You can see it's got one block above that, so you're not going to have to worry about your villagers getting trapped inside there. And then go ahead and place a bed in for that, beside that, and then bring in a villager to link to those bed and workstations. There we go. He's a farmer. Same thing on the other side. Put your composter in the corner, bed in the other corner, bring in the villager to occupy those. Boom, we got 2 farmers in place. Now, once they're not standing on their beds like fools, you'll want to go ahead and probably cap this thing off. You'll want your villagers to be covered anyways, so they're not getting struck by lightning, and it's just probably a good idea. You could leave it open. I suppose it wouldn't really hurt anything if you had a roof overhead. But yeah, there's always the fear of your villagers getting struck by lightning. Now you can see they can't actually access this farmland yet. We're gonna determine when they get to do that. But your best bet now is go ahead and till all this land up. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that. So now all the farmland is completely tilled, and you can see it's starting to hydrate itself. And now that the villager's not standing on his bed, I did manage to close that in the rest of the way. But from here, there's a couple different ways you can do it. You could have your villagers do your planting for you, I suppose. Or you could plant the first set of crops yourself, and let the machine take it from there. I would probably recommend planting the first set yourself. So let's go ahead and just plant seeds in every single one of these spots. And then once we got all our seeds planted here, and this should be a day, well, this should be during the day whenever you do this part. Uh, but you got all them planted. We're going to place a single item into our hopper ring here. This is our counter. And it doesn't matter what item you use here. I'm going to use this stair block. But you want to place it in the one closest to the redstone torch right here. You don't want to place it in this one. That's going to activate your flush system, and it's going to harvest all these crops prematurely. Of course, it will open up the door to the villagers' little apartment there and feed them all the seeds right back. So they'll end up planting it all back in there. But it's just a good idea to kind of let these mature as much as they can before you harvest them. And even doing it this way, they might not mature completely. But from here, your farm is set up. It's going to be the day-night cycles that kind of determine when these plants get harvested. Like I said, it's only going to happen once every 2 days. Your field of crops might not mature completely, but the most of them will within a 2 days time, especially since your villagers aren't going to be able to get to those fully grown crops to harvest them and end up giving you just baby crops that don't produce any wheat. So I'm going to watch this for a few minutes to see if I can get a shot of these things working. Finally! Now, as you can see, you're not really going to be getting a whole ton of wheat off of this first harvest. I think you'll find that future harvests will yield better results as well, plants will have had more time to grow. It all kind of depends on when you put in your initial crops and I guess how long they had to actually grow. But if we take a look at our chest, keep in mind we had 22 in here before then. See, we only got another 7 off the first harvest. But yeah, bigger, longer growth period means more of them will mature completely. And as soon as these villagers get up out of bed, they'll come out here, they'll pick up these seeds, and they're going to start planting. And there he goes, getting to work. He came out here, he picked up a couple seeds. He's going to visit with his composter a little bit, and he might share those seeds with his buddy in there. And yeah, then they're going to get to work. They're going to start planting up all of those seeds inside the field. There he goes right now. Sometimes you'll find one of them just carries a bunch of seeds and feeds them to the other guy. Sometimes they both do the planting. I like it when they both do the planting because the idea is get them all planted as quickly as possible. The sooner you get them planted, the more time they have to grow. Provided they do not mature within this single day's time, they should have an entire another day-night cycle after this to mature completely, because those villagers will be trapped inside their apartment and unable to harvest the crops themselves. And my friends, that completes today's tutorial. And of course, if you enjoyed this video or you found it helpful, please remember to hit that like button. And if you're interested in seeing more from me, consider hitting the subscribe button as well. I would like to invite everybody to come join the BOB Gaming Discord server. The link I'll post in the description below. I'll also post my Twitter in the description below as well, so you can follow me there for announcements on new videos or whatever it may be. Really all I'm been using Twitter for is announcements on new videos. But of course, I want to thank each and every one of you for watching and wish you all a wonderful day.